Hello, and welcome to today's presentation, Protecting the Emotional Well-Being of Shelter Pets. Today's webinar is being presented by Virox Animal Health, makers of Rescue and Prevail disinfectants formulated with accelerated hydrogen peroxide in collaboration with our friends at Shelters United. There will be a live Q&A at the end of this presentation, so please send in your questions at any time in the chat section located on the right-hand side of your screen. In addition to the live Q&A, we will also be joined by Mal Schwartz from Shelters United, who has a very special offer for Shelters United members that you won't want to miss. So make sure you stay tuned to the very end of this presentation. So now, without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Dr. Marty Becker, founder of Fear Free and America's Veterinarian. So over to you, Dr. Becker.
Laura, thank you for the introduction. You look so good, Laura. You look like you're doing a video for Match.com or something. If you didn't have somebody already, I think that was your promo. But you look and sound so positive. I just love working with you. Believe it or not, when you look at me, I'm coming to you from Almost Heaven Ranch. We live on a horse ranch in extreme northern Idaho. For our Canadian friends, we only live 6 miles from the Canadian border. So in 2020 at the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions, there was a question about what state, it says, this county touches 2 states in a foreign country and is located in what is called the panhandle of the state. And he got it right, it was Idaho. So up there in the Idaho panhandle, it's 45 miles wide and 100 miles tall. So where we sit right now, we're 15 miles from Montana, 30 miles from Washington State, and 6 miles from Canada. The river that runs through this great valley was the river that was done, if you saw the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he won the Academy Award, that's the river that runs by us here. The River Wild, a river runs through it. We're all filmed on this beautiful river, but it is cold. I just came back from a month in Hawaii. Look at me. Can you believe I was a month in Hawaii? My wife, whose grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, she's got a good tan. So trust me, she got the effect of Hawaii while I sat in the room and watched documentaries and read books and prepared for this talk. I'm really excited to talk to you about you today. When I was growing up, we had no shelters or rescues in our communities. I didn't know anything about them. I went through veterinary school, wanted to be a dairy practitioner, and the very first day of veterinary school, the dean gave his introductory talks, and he started talking about the human-animal bond, that affection connection that's kind of like love. It's nebulous but easily understood by anybody that's ever felt that deep connection with the pet. And next thing I know, I am a companion animal practitioner. So the desire to be a dairy practitioner for 14 years evaporated in 30 minutes, and I became a companion animal practitioner. He also, at the end of his introductory talks, asked for volunteers for the People-Pet Partnership that matched elderly people with homeless pets, and I volunteered. And so I really saw firsthand in this formative years of my veterinary profession about celebrating, protecting, and nurturing that bond. Became familiar with shelters. When we came out, we did some pretty innovative things. We had practices in Boise and Salt Lake. We always worked with government agencies to showcase different pets. So inside of this combination, veterinary hospital, grooming, boarding, training center, pet stores, we had adoption centers for homeless pets. So I applaud all of you who work with pets. I think we all share something special. There's a gift, if you will, that allows us to go above and beyond when it comes to understanding pets, interacting with them, reducing fear, anxiety, and stress, and helping them live happy, healthy, full lives. I got to practice the first week, and it was during Parvo. So it was 1980 when Parvo hit, and my partner hadn't had a vacation in 5 years, so he left for 5 weeks. So here I was, I didn't know anything, with all these calls coming in about Parvo, and a lady came in. She was an ex-flight attendant and got up to me and grabbed me by my shirt and was shaking me. I'm like, Marty, you've got to stop what they're doing in this community. I'm like, oh my God, I've only been in practice 3 days. And she told me they were gassing the dogs to death at the local shelter. I didn't even know what that meant. I went down with her and saw firsthand, like right now in my mind's eye, I can see that image I saw, and volunteered to help humanely euthanize these pets. So we've come a long way since then, but for those of you that are on this call today and working, I so applaud everything that you do. I'm on 5 national boards. I'm on 5 local shelter boards, but the stuff in the trenches that you do, I'm not able to do anymore. I just got so many struggling things about euthanizing pets and stuff that I really had a hard time, doing that. So I really applaud what you're doing. Let's get started here. So you probably know about fear-free shelters. It's complementary to all shelters and rescues. There's somewhere around 70,000 individuals that have registered for that program, and about 80% of the people that have registered have completed that 5-hour online course. The thing it does is it completely changes the way we interact with our own pets. You learn, for example, that you do not go up to a pet, whether it's coming into the shelter, it's on the street, it's at a neighbor's house, and go forward and lean forward and go, oh my gosh, you're so cute, and stick your fist out. Can I pet your dog? What's its name? What breed is it? You're doing 3 things wrong. Number 1, you're looming big, hollowing big. Number 2, prolonged direct eye contact to the eye. Number 3 is putting something right in their face. That dog has smelled you before it even saw you. What you learn is to turn sideways, reduce your profile. Kind of hard for me since I got a big gut now, but you try to reduce your profile. Take a knee if you can, and call the pet over to you. We've learned in veterinary medicine, I've been down there with Temple Grandin, who's iconic. We have 256 people on the Fear Free Advisory Group, and the only person who's truly gifted, I think, is Temple Grandin. And I don't mean to demean the 65 boarded veterinary behaviorists that are part of Fear Free, or the 12 boarded anesthesiologists, or the PhD animal behaviorists, or the animal handling experts, but Temple Grandin went into a practice with me November of 2020 during COVID. It was the only trip I took during COVID. And we were in a companion animal practice, and Temple goes, there was a dog put up on a table, on a lift table, and the table started to go up and was kind of wobbling like this, and the dog froze on here. Temple goes, animals' number 1 fear is fire. Their number 2 fear is the fear of falling for all animals. So what do you do when you lift a pet off its legs to put them up on a table? They think they're falling. Their second greatest fear of all. By the way, Temple said, at this moment when this dog, got into FAS level 4, there's a FAS scale, fear, anxiety, and stress scale. Just like there's a body condition scoring scale, there's a pain scale we use in veterinary medicine. We now use a FAS scale. This dog was level 4, maybe even 5, which is the strongest. She goes, at that moment, that dog took a picture, a snapshot, and that they're thinking pictures like Temple does in autism. And it saw this block of white, 2 people in white lab coats, and it saw these cabinets, and over here it saw this window with this paint scheme. She goes, I'd put in the emotional record not to put the pet back into that practice or into that exam room the next time. And a veterinary architect and I looked at each other and we went, all the exam rooms look exactly the same. So based on that visit now, in designing new shelters, new places, they want to make sure that these rooms actually look different. So if a pet has a negative experience in one, you don't put them back into the same thing that initiated the FAS. So you're always looking in anywhere this animal is, if it's in your home, if it's in the practice, at the groomer, pet sitter, boarding, shelter, what can we do to remove or reduce the triggers? So certain are common to all dogs. They don't want to be elevated up there where they're going to fall. And some are particular to a specific pet. It may have had a bad experience in one room. It prefers males over females. It has a very sensitive ear because it had an ear infection, so you leave that last. I got to put a plug in here. This is Cutie Pie. He's my heart dog. I think you guys would all agree on here. There's only one greatest dog in the world, and every family has her or him. I've had 16 dogs in my life, and this is my little heartbeat dog. 7 dogs in a litter of canine cocktails came up from California on wings of rescue to the local shelter, and all but one died. So Cutie Pie here was in intensive care for 6 or 7 days, spent about 7 or 8,000 bucks on the little guy, but he made it. He's a Jack Russell Chihuahua Dachshund cross. So if you can see him, he's about 2 dogs long and a half a dog tall. So, when we want to do in shelters, we want to reduce fear, anxiety, and stress. And of course, these shelter animals, one of the things we've thought of when we did the fearfreeshelters.com course, what about where these pets are sourced? These fishing holes, for lack of a better term, or they're coming from Mississippi or Louisiana, and By the way, my wife and I have been down doing shelter rescues in the South, in Louisiana, or Texas, or Southern California. We had never thought before about the intake and the transfer and what happens with the very moment they enter the shelter, and about our husbandry, about the cleaners that we use that don't cause them to go nose blind, about people avoiding that direct eye contact, about these great people that volunteer. What can they do besides just walking a dog to take steps to reduce fear, anxiety, and stress and increase happy and calm, and also do enrichment activities? You know, these mammals have this genetic exuberance. They want to explore. Terriers want to dig. Retrievers want to retrieve. Sighthounds want to follow stuff that's moving very quickly. And that's one of the things you're learning. Once you go through that Fear-Free Shelters course, it'll change the way you interact with your own pet. I'll give you an example. Most likely you will throw out the food bowls that you are using and start using food puzzles or food dispensing devices. I live up here in close to Canada, deep in the mountains where we have wolves. To eat as a wolf, remember, dogs come from wolves. It takes 6 steps to eat. You got to detect your prey, pursue it, apprehend it, kill it, compete with the pack. That's 5 steps. Finally, you get to belly up to the beast to eat. Guess what happens when you just put food in a bowl? You're going right to step 6, eat. And in the wild canids, coyotes, wolves, 80% of their waking hours is spent in pursuit of food. So what happens if you go from 80% of your waking hours spent in pursuit of food to you eating in 1 minute or 2 minutes? So what food puzzles or food dispensing devices like Kong Wobbler, like Green Interactive Feeder, Nina Otteson has a whole bunch of them. You can find at chewy.com is where we get most of ours, or amazon.com, or your local pet store, or maybe you sell them in the shelter. You're feeding the body as well as feeding the mind. So in the past, listen, I'm no Temple Grandin. Before I had this epiphany, Fear Free started at a talk that was given by a board veterinary behaviorist in Canada in 2009. I gave the keynote the day before, and Dr. Karen Overall, a board veterinary behaviorist, of which there's about 100, and there's 50 residents. So you can see it's becoming a very popular profession, a specialty in the profession. She attended my keynote, and one of those people in the audience that smiles at you, and gives you support. So I thought, well, I got to go support her the next day. She was in the front of my room, I was in the back of her room, and I got her attention as she came in. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to sneak out. It was late in the day. I'll sneak out and go have myself a nice cold Canadian beer, meet my wife early for supper. And I had my Franklin Covey day planner, which I still use, by the way, and checking my AOL account, which I don't know if any of you can show of hands, but AOL is still really handy when you're my age. So you get constipation products and stair lifts and erectile dysfunction ads. So it's quite the place to be. And I was sitting there kind of daydreaming, and all of a sudden she starts out, "Fear is the worst thing a social species could experience, and it causes permanent damage to the brain. That those of us that take care of animals, veterinarians, shelter workers, trainers, groomers, are causing repeat severe psychological damage to pets by what we are doing. Behavior produces a physiologic response, so behavior is medicine. Fear is caused by something painful or something disturbing." And she gave these examples. You trim a nails too short on a pet. Oh, that's painful. Now the pet's seeing the nail trimmers. That's disturbing. You're using a syringe and a needle. You're doing a blood draw. You're giving a vaccination. You're giving a dose of Serenity. You're giving a shot of antibiotics. Oh, that's painful. Now the pet sees the syringe. That's disturbing. And then she really got me with this one. She's talked about all the normal signs of fear, anxiety, and stress and things. And then she said, how many of you were a child in the 1950s or 60s and were manhandled, manipulated, threatened, and abused? And she goes, I want you to think of specific incidences in your young life when that happened. And I thought of having an abscess on the end of my right index finger, had a sliver, and 3 people held me down to pull a splinter out of there on this abscess. I can still remember the whole room and everything. I remember I got an injection, probably of an antibiotic, in my butt cheek, and I started screaming at the doctor's office, and my mom rose up out of the chair with her little cat eye glasses out of this chair. I can still see the chrome on the handles of it and the naga hide. She rose out there and she raised her hand up in the air. "Shut up, Marty." And then she goes, "Don't embarrass the doctor." So that's the comfort I got in 1960. By the way, my sister Cheryl, who's a physician, used to get her ponytail pulled at the dentist office to keep her mouth open. But here's the thing, all animals are the equivalent of a toddler. Number one, they're taken against their will for health care. That was her words. Number two, they have no idea why the procedure benefits them. They don't know why a vaccine benefits them. They don't know why an exam benefits them. Looking at a sore ear, infected mouth, a long broken toenail, a laceration, a arthritic joint. Number three, they don't know how long it takes. So they can't anticipate or expect the relief of fear, anxiety, and stress, even if it's moments away. And number four, they have no control. They can't flee the threat. To use an example of a COVID vaccine, we go in, myself, I go in by free will. I know why it benefits me. I know it's going to take 30 minutes. And if I got freaked out, I could leave. And I did see people get freaked out and leave, by the way. Well, a dog coming in or a cat coming in, they don't know why. They're taken against their will. They have no idea why it benefits them. They can't anticipate or expect the relief. I don't know it's going to last 30 minutes or the actual exam is going to be 6 minutes, and they can't flee the threat. So that's what the difference is. Before Fear Free, I was stretching cats out into 2 zip code. Their head was in San Francisco and their ass was in Oakland, or it was their head was in New York City and their ass was in Brooklyn. That's what I was taught. Restraint designed to protect people. And now in Fear Free, you learn about gentle control. It's designed to protect the pet. And what a difference it makes. Originally it just started out to, prevent or relieve animal pain and suffering. We actually take an oath. An oath is a sacred vow. We take a vow, an oath to prevent or relieve animal pain and suffering. Heck, we were causing it by what we were doing or not doing. And so it's just, and then we started finding out, my gosh, it's better medicine. The vital signs, the temperature, pulse, respiration. What if the temperature, you take it into a shelter and the pet is calm, or it's inside the shelter and its temperature is 103.5? That might not be shivering and shaking and elevating its temperature. It might have an infection. Or if its heart rate is higher, it might be tachycardia. It might be, hyperthyroidism. And the blood chemistries are more normal. You take these tests and the white blood cell count is higher. When you get really stressed, what happens is the spleen just squeezes out and it puts a lot of red blood cells into circulation to oxygenate, and it puts white blood cells into circulation to fight infection. Well, what if the white blood cell count was higher because there was actually an infection somewhere, not just because the pet was stressed? Same thing with blood glucose. Is it pre-diabetic, or is it just in the fight or flight response? And the physical exam is more normal. You've all probably taken a pet to the vet where it was limping, or you touched it and it cried out in pain. You take it to the vet and you can't reproduce it. That's because the pet's in that fight or flight response. But one of the things, we're looking at now, everywhere that these pets goes, I've actually seen studies done of, this sounds a little gross, but bear with me on this. Take your dog to the happiest place you can think it wants to go. Like it's up on a walk going up to your cabin, or it's on a hike up in the mountains, and it's happy and it takes a poop. And you double bag it in 2 Ziplocs and you toss it in the Yeti cooler. And then your same dog going to the veterinarian. Or if it has a bad experience at the groomer, which you see a lot of those in these grooming places where the pets are terrified, take that feces and double bag it and put it in the Yeti cooler, and then go somewhere random in this test and put the 2 fecal samples out. The one from the happy place, dogs will come up in this happy kind of continence and mark over it. The ones that come from the really stressful place, like the shelter, like the veterinary practice, like grooming, they will come up and they'll get fairly close to it, then they just flare off like they've hit a shield on a Star Wars. Because of fear pheromones. So you have to think of this. These pheromones, you can't smell them. A cat can't smell a dog when a dog can't smell a cat, when humans can't smell either one of them. But that animal control truck, those vertical surfaces outside the shelter, that column, that portico, the end of that wall, that handicap sign that they're urinating on, it has fear pheromones on it. And that's why in really good facilities, you pick up the feces out there, more than once a day. And those vertical surfaces that are out there, you make sure they're sprayed with rescue, and then better yet, then spritz back across them with pheromones. So adaptable for dogs and feel away for cats. One of the things you can do, for example, I see in really good shelters and rescues, and this is taken from fear-free veterinary practices, when the pets come in, they have little treat bags with them. So they'll come down, take a knee, and try to make that very first moment in there something, really, we call it putting the treat into treatment, but something really tasty. And then have the pet parent, whether they're bringing it in to relinquish it or whatever, put a bandana on the dog that's been impregnated with pheromones. If it's a cat, you can toss a little cotton ball in there that's impregnated with fetal way into the carrier. And then we use fleece baby blankets. We actually know if you go to fearfreeshelters.com, there's a research link that'll take you back to fearfreepets.com. And if you want to look at the research, but pets like fleece better than they like cotton towels, and they like pastel colors better than white. White is the worst possible color you can have. So think of it. It looks good on Easter eggs. It looks good to pets. But use towel warmers and have some for cats and some for dogs, fleece blankets. And so that way, when that pet's coming in, it's got that little collar on, that bandana on, and then it's put into a cage or a run that has that blanket that has those pheromones in it. And by the way, everybody that works in the shelter, in the veterinary hospital, should be wearing those um, wearing stuff with those pheromones. It's best to actually refresh those twice a day. If you follow the advice of the person that invented the synthetic pheromones, he likes to put feel away from the waist up and adaptable for the dogs on the waist down, but you can truly just mix them all over you. It doesn't matter, but you need to do about twice a day. Far as sounds, we know that pets like certain kinds of sounds. There's some great research on it. Basically, pets like classical music. For some reason, they like reggae. You can go online to on Chewy.com or Amazon and get I Calm Dog or I Calm Cats. They're little portable music players, or you can just go to Spotify or Pandora. There's some great pet relaxation tracks on there as well. So when you come into a place that's fear free, what you don't see outside is they're smelling these pheromones. When they're coming in, it's these pheromones. They're smelling their mother. And there's great care taken to reduce the loud sounds, to have this very pleasant sound. And of course, to do this, rather than restraint, you're looking at something called gentle control. You still have positional compliance, but uh, it makes it, we actually changed our, used to have, and you probably have this, a shelter, caution, fearful animal. It's red with white lettering that really sticks out. And we used to have cautioned fearful pet, and that meant there was a job to be done to protect us from the pet. And now it says caution fearful pet, and that means there's work to be done to protect this pet. And one of the things you find out about fear free is, one is you match up with this oath we take, or rather this kind of pledge we do to help pets live happy, healthy, full lives. It is better medicine. There's a dramatic decrease in injuries, dramatic decrease in injuries. In fact, veterinary practices that have 3 fear-free certified people get a very significant discount on workers' compensation. That's because, one is you're always working to keep the fear, anxiety, and stress levels low, and so you're very aware of that kind of things, and you don't hesitate to retreat. So in the past, we would have just taken a dog to the back in a veterinary practice and had 2 or 3, technicians hold the dog down. And now, if you have a pet that's very stressed, I have this saying: we're not going to sacrifice your pet's long-term emotional well-being for the convenience of getting this done today. We have 3 choices. We can retreat and come back another day a different way. We can give it something intramuscularly that will take effect almost immediately, or we can give it something orally if you have, an hour to wait, or you can come back and do this procedure today. So, when you think of these pets, I like you have seen these pets come in that are absolutely terrified. Number one, they know, those pets that know when they go to the vet, they know if you're going to the park or you're going to Petco versus going to the veterinarian. And when you come into a shelter, it's extremely stressful for most pets, that entry. There's pheromones all over the place. You often can hear animals in distress, and all the different sights and smells and sounds and everything that are in there. And so what happens is that pet that's already, I've been very open about my mental health issues. I have severe depression that luckily medication takes pretty good care of, but I went in therapy for the first time, and I can parse out things that have happened in my life. Dad manic depressive, multiple suicides in my family, dad an alcoholic, and other things in your amygdala. This little almond-shaped thing that sits up above the roof of your mouth and your dog's mouth that stores all these negative memories. I don't know how that little tiny thing stores every bad thing that's happened, but in a dog or cat, you can't parse out what happened. What happened to that pet? If it came from Louisiana and then it was this shelter and then it was rehomed for you, or it lived in 2 or 3 different homes, what exactly happened with them? And so that's why with a lot of these pets, you can't parse it out. So you've got to do things to remove or reduce these triggers. And often it ends up being something that's a nutraceutical or a pharmaceutical. But of course, the longer these pets are in the shelter, these kind of some of these emotional suffering escalates, and that's what this Fear-Free Shelters course does. Is it takes you through all these different pieces and what can you do to remove or reduce these triggers in all of these different areas of the shelter. Now, one of the things you'll learn about, I still remember when Karen Overall gave this initial talk to me, and you've all seen a lot of the signs of them, shivering, shaking, panting, yawning. Dogs will yawn. They're not yawning because they're bored. They're not panting because they're hot. They're panting because they're stressed. They're yawning because they're stressed. Or they'll shake dry like they're uh, wet, but they're not wet. Or they'll lean away from something, or you see them whale-eyed. You see a furrowed brow. You'll see pinned back ears or a pinned tail. One of the things that I thought was really crazy was on dogs. I always thought dogs that came in and act like they were sleeping was they were just so relaxed. And with the best intention, many of us who care for animals don't recognize the signs of deep stress like feigned sleep or what's called learned helplessness. We think these pets are sleeping or calm when in fact it's they're suffering the worst possible stress. And this is called there's something called the defense cascade. And when right now, if you were to hear a scream or a gunshot or explosion, you would alert, and then you think fight or flight. Well, if you get cornered, from watching executions in World War II or different things with probably what's happening in Ukraine right now, sadly, once you get cornered and you can't move, you get in what's called collapsing immobility. You just cannot move. So what I thought was the dog that's laying there with its head down with its eyes closed was sleeping. Actually, they're in collapsing immobility. Same thing with the frozen cat. Cats who they suffer from stress related physical illness as well as emotional distress. Those cats that are frozen, which before Fear-Free I liked it because you could do anything, are actually in the very worst possible condition. And that's a great thing about Fear-Free. Most veterinary practices now, whether they're fear-free or not, have changed the way they practice. More and more pets are examined not up on the table. We're doing our animal handling differently. We're using a lot of something called gabapentin. And I can't do a Cheech and Chong voice very well, but normally when you'd see a cat come to the practice, we would say they were effed. And I'm not talking a naughty effed. Fight, flight, freeze, or fidget. And when you give a little gabapentin to a cat, it's like, far out, man. Man, this is nice, Cheech. Yeah, this is nice. It's amazing what difference that makes. And probably quite a few of your shelters are using an oral Bordetella now rather than intranasal Bordetella. You squirt liquid in a mammal's nose, they don't like it. You give it to orally, and you have a lot less problems. And this is true. Nobody goes into treating animals to make life worse for them. We all want to make life better for pets, and one of the things we've done, I think we've done a good job of focusing on physical well-being. We have shelter veterinarians. You take them to the veterinarians. We make sure we use the right kind of cleaning products. We want to make sure they get exercise, but we haven't looked at emotional well-being and enrichment activities. So, several things can change there where there's sight barriers, there's pheromones used, there's calming music used, there's knowing how to do the animal handling piece, there's enrichment activities for these pets. Because ultimately what we all want, isn't it, for them to have find their right forever home. And even a lot of dogs aren't given the right kind of dogs and cats aren't given a fair chance because the people that come in to adopt them don't know how to interact with them. They interact with them the way they've always interacted with them, putting their hand out, expecting the dog to come right over to them. Where if a lot of these dogs, if they would just get down, turn sideways, call them over to them, some of these shy dogs would come over immediately and it'd have a great interaction. So, what can you do? I think is go through this course where we, look at ways to reduce or remove these kind of triggers. It's available at no cost for all shelter staff and volunteers. And again, we're working on protecting the emotional health, focus on creating and maintain a physiological or behavior well-being. We want pets to not just have lower levels of fear, anxiety, and stress, but higher levels of happiness and calm. By the way, we're doing a study right now with dogs that are within a certain mile radius of Disneyland. And think of the dogs that have noise phobias, where every night at Disneyland, boom, boom, boom. Or people that live in Florida, those of you down in Tampa, Clearwater, the thunderstorm capital of the world, no dog should have to suffer from noise phobias. Up here, we have a little dog. I don't know if he'll make an appearance here in a little bit, but he has noise phobias and the snow sliding off the roof, or thunderstorms, or it's hunting season up here. We treat them for noise phobias. They don't have to suffer, going to think they're going to die. And going to the veterinarian. Most of the pets that come into North Idaho Animal Hospital, where Fear Free started and where I practice, if come in for nail trims, will drag their owner into the thing to have their nails trimmed. If you go to, we've created the best nail trim course on the planet. 85% of the cats that come into that clinic that aren't sick or injured will take a treat. But it's a step of protocols, of it's a series of protocols and procedures developed by 256 experts. And then that was just on the Fear Free course for the veterinarians. On the Fear Free Shelters course, it was Brenda Griffin from the Shelter Medicine Project, and Kate Hurley, the world's first shelter medicine program, and Sheila D'Arpino, the San Francisco SPCA, really led those teams. But the very best things you can see. And so you learn how to look at these subtle signs. You look at how to remove or reduce these triggers. You learn, for example, that next time you have a drive for your shelter, ask for baby blankets, rather than towels, and learn the things of these cleaners that don't cause pets to go nosebleed. In fact, if you're using Clorox, within 60 seconds, that will kills all the olfactory neurons in a dog's nose. They'll still be sniffing, but they can't smell. Imagine an animal that relies so much on the sense of smell that all of a sudden can't smell. So I might be. Is this where we go over to Mal, or do I keep going here?
You're good to keep going for a couple more slides, Marty, but we'll be joining you very, very soon.
Okay. You're so sweet, Laura. You sure you have a boyfriend? He just looks, well, you're so sweet. I happen to know she has a boyfriend because we talked yesterday, a Croatian. It's funny. You get a kick out of this. I did 2 TV interviews today, and I knew everything was working. And Laura had it set up where we're going to be on here, 15, 20 minutes early, and nothing worked. Everything was working perfect. We tried it yesterday, and absolutely nothing worked. So I'm not kidding you. It took within seconds of this thing going live before we figured this out. So I hope I act like I'm calm here.
I didn't think anybody would have known unless you told them.
I had to squeal here. So, one of the things that here is you got to think of these pets again, and that amygdala, that little tiny thing that's, tiny. Amygdala is almond in Latin, sits up right above the roof of your mouth, deep in the brain, that holds all those negative memories. There's a lot of things that we don't know, that just animal handling, just changing colors, just changing bedding, just changing cleaning things can't take care of. And that's why you have to look sometimes to nutraceuticals, to compression garments, to pharmaceuticals. I'm going to be with Temple at the Western Veterinary Conference. If any of you on this call are going to be at the Western Veterinary Conference, there's a full day on Fear Free on Monday, March 7th. But I also have a couple spots open for dinner Laura's going to go to dinner with Temple Grandin. There's small dinner parties, so I've gotten to know her very, very well. But uh, this thing in this amygdala, sometimes, autistic people love to be compressed. And, think about compression. That's why you swaddle a baby. That's why autistic people like to be held very, very tightly. Or Temple Grandin actually invented kind of a squeeze chute for herself in college. We lost 3 family members in the past year, 2 to COVID and 1 to lung cancer. So it wiped my wife's family out. And when you lose somebody, they give you these deep hugs. And that deep hug is just something primal, but it's that compression. So thunder shirts work very well in dogs and pretty well in cats. Most people put them on too tight in cats and not tight enough in dogs, by the way, but very, very good success with those compression garments. There's nutraceuticals like Zylkene, Zylkene. It's by a company called Vetiquinol. And I'm not sure, Mal will have to say if that's available through Shelters United, but it works very well. You can use it long term. It's a milk protein. And, Mother Nature had to figure out, hey, I've got baby puppies or kittens, and I'm going to be laying on my side nursing them. And I don't want this to be golden corral for a predator, right? So how am I going to keep these puppies or kittens quiet? Through pheromones. So the mother secretes something around the nipples to cause these pets to be calm. Well, the lucky thing is it works throughout a dog and cat's life. So 14-year-old dog, the same pheromone causes them to be calm. An older 20-year-old cat, feel away causes them to be calm. There's also something in the milk that causes them to be calm. We thought for a while it was just a distended stomach, but there's actually something in milk. So this Zylkene is a milk protein. And no, we didn't use little tiny fingers and milk little cats like I can't remember the Fockers or something. We don't milk little tiny queens and get little kitten milk. It comes from cow's milk, but it's been modified to work very well. And again, gabapentin works so well. And sometimes you have to use something stronger like Celio, like generic Xanax or things like that. But you're going to understand how you match up. There's something, and I want to, before we're done today, I got some new research. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about emotional contagion. And even things that you start to learn, we talk about understanding the body language clues. I don't know if you know that dogs are right or left preference, just like we are. We're right-handed, right? Or they're dogs that are right front paw preference or left paw, and also dogs will swing their tail more to the right or the left. And basically, if you have a shelter pet, and you'll have to see this with your pets at home, if the dog wags its tail to the right, they're generally associated with being more positive emotionally. If their tail primarily wags to the left, it's associated with a negative emotional valence. And also, and this is because the emotional side of the brain or the logical side of the brain. How are you going to tell if your dog is right or left paw preference? Get a Kong, stuff it up, or give them really good bow and see which paw they hold that Kong with as they lick the contents out. That'll show you if they're right or left paw preference. If it's right paw preference, and if its tail wags to the right, you're probably going to have a dog that is much easier emotionally and a lot easier to train. Considered approach, I guess I talked about that a little bit early. There's a good dog sign: fear, anxiety, and stress. You see the whites of their eyes, tail is tucked, fur is broward, ears are pinned back. And what you want to do is you don't want to walk up to that pet looking at it and stick your hand out and stuff like that. Turn sideways, drop down, take a knee if you're able to. It's getting harder now that I'm almost 68. Call the pet over to you. And if you can Hansel and Gretel it over, and you got to have really good treats to do this. As Temple said, you can't have stuff that's too novel. Like I wouldn't recommend a piece of the Collins Street Bakery fruit cake that's left over. It's probably not going to work. But when I practice as a veterinarian, North Idaho Animal Hospital, I have turkey hot dogs, Vienna sausages, Spam, turkey and beef baby food, easy cheese, cheddar and bacon, strips, cheese slices, whipped cream, peanut butter, liver paste. I'm forgetting some of them, but deli turkey, a tuna, salmon. So you have warm deli turkey. I'm telling you, you're probably going to get that dog to walk over and start introducing itself with you. And remember, you can have guide to avoid prolonged direct eye contact. Gentle control. is restraint was designed to protect the people. Technicians are taught, don't let the doctor get bitten. And it didn't matter how many people held it down. You tie their, we do nail trims, and you've probably seen this in a shelter. Tie their muzzles shut with gauze. 3 people holding them down, always taking them back to the same place in the shelter or the practice to the nail trims. What do we do now? How do you get a dog to drag the owner into the hospital, have their nails trimmed? Number one, the pet parent, and this is true with anything, they have to participate in this. They should start that magic carp ride of pheromones if they can, have the pet come in hungry, don't baby talk the pet on the way in, but play calming music. When it comes in, we've cleaned these surfaces correctly, the scale, the outside surfaces are wearing the pheromones, and we don't take it back to the same place it was done for. Might take it to the doctor's office, do it outside, do it in the employee lounge, do it in reception area, but we're this gentle control. Believe me, the dog bites go so far down when you don't physically restrain them. And the one thing is you got to remember is you can always come back another day a different way. You will have people, if you're using any kind of nutraceuticals or pharmaceuticals, you'll have people say, we've never used those in 40 years. We've done stuff. Well, we don't do convenience euthanasia anymore. We don't do ear crops. You know, there's a lot of things we don't do anymore, and it's not safe. It's not safe to do it, and it's not fair to this pet. That's just going to load up their amygdala with lots of negative well-being. Laura, keep going, or
Just a couple more slides and we'll be joining you again.
Oh, good, Laura. Okay. So, if you'd asked me before Fear Free, so by the way, on using food bowls and foods dispensing devices, I have done that for 15 years based on boarded veterinary behaviors. None of our dogs eat out of food bowls. And on our horses up there, the horses have mangers, but we use different things where we put um, nets out for them to find hay in different parts of the thing. We have giant balls for them to play with. We have a giant Kong that's for horses. We have things you can stick carrots in. We do all sorts of stuff for enrichment activities. But if you'd ask me for Fear Free, what are the absolute needs for a cat? Okay, food, water, shelter, and veterinary care. No, cats have a place to hide. They have to have a place to scratch, and they have to have a place to climb. They have to have that. And so that's that thing about enrichment activities. Now we have probably in this log home here, you can see glimpses of, we probably have 6, 7 different scratching surfaces. Some are vertical, some are horizontal, they're different substrates. Some are cardboard, some are carpet, some are sisal. And we have several places where the cats can climb. And cats are a really weird thing. They're this weird ecological niche between prey and predator. And so if they're a prey animal, they want to get up so they don't become supper. If they're a predator, they want to get up to look for supper. They want to be able to see it. So that's why cats love getting up high. One of the things we've got to do in whatever facility we're in is reduce the noise. There's a product called a Yacker Tracker. You can look, I think it's Yakker, Yacker Tracker is designed for preschools to keep the noise down. It looks like an old-fashioned stoplight where it's red, green, and yellow. And so you set this thing, ideally you want to be below 75 decibels. And as long as it's below 75 decibels, there's this nice little green glow that comes out of that. If it gets higher, it goes to yellow, and finally above a certain level, it goes to red. But it's a reminder to keep our voices down. One of my favorite practices that I go to that's fear-free, and if you guys are doing space and neuters in your facility, whenever we wake the pets up from surgery, we have them in a fleece baby blanket, remember, pastel colors, and we put little tiny baby socks on them because pets lose heat out of their feet and out of their head, and that's one of the things you want to do in recovery. You've been in a hospital probably before, known somebody, want to keep them nice and warm. And so there's a thing called I think it's called Zip Whip. It's an app you can get, and anybody can take a picture with their mobile phone, and it shows up from the shelter or from the veterinary hospital is what the pet parent will see, and you can show that pet coming out of surgery wearing those little baby socks. Love that. And one of the things, in going through, I'm not again, all this stuff's in the Fear-Free Shelter course, but you've got to learn to give them so they don't feel this learned hopelessness, that they have, if they're a dog next to them that's aggressive, or they have to pass by a dog that's aggressive, they always take things so they have some control on removing themselves from these unpleasant stimuli. And I'm sure a lot of you do things like Kong stuff. And I've been in shelters where they have people come in and read poetry to the dogs. Others come in and play. Somebody will play music to them. I've been a member being in the San Francisco, or not San Francisco, the New York ASPCA there, and somebody came in every afternoon and read poetry to the dogs. Others will have yappy hour. Some then will come there with the big carts full of Kongs, frozen Kongs, and buying peanut butter by the palletful from Costco. But think of things you can do to feed the body and feed the mind and do enrichment activities for these pets while they're in the shelter or the rescue. And by the way, this is probably a good time to talk to you a little bit about emotional contagion. And we can supply studies for this to anybody that loves the science on it. But this is really interesting. There hasn't been another domesticated species in 5,000 years after dogs, and only dogs and cats have broken down our hearts and homes in mass. And so you think of 5,000 years about these, more than 5,000 years, 40,000 years for dogs. There's a special affection connection with them. I don't know if you know or if it's in the intro, but I was the resident veterinarian of Good Morning America for 17 years. Started out with Dr. Oz when he started his show. I was on his show for 6 years and part of Core Team Oz. I'm a nationally syndicated columnist. I've had a vet pet column for over 2 decades. I've written 23 books and sold 8 million books and had some New York Times bestsellers, and I'm still a practicing veterinarian. And I'm so fascinated by, I wrote a book called The Healing Power of Pets about that human-animal health connection. And when you stroke a dog, within about 60 seconds, there's this massive release of positive biochemicals: oxytocin, prolactin, phenylethylamine. Oxytocin, the hug hormone; prolactin, think of a mother nursing a baby; phenylethylamine, the active ingredient in chocolate. It doesn't matter if that's a 80-year-old man stroking. It's like a mother nursing a baby eating a chocolate bar. And the great thing is the dog gets exactly the reciprocal biochemical spot treatment. So I don't know how many of you, if you want to put in the comments, who of you have rooters or rakers, but rooters are the ones that take their nose and root your hand up and down like, what the hell are you stopping petting me for, scratching me for? I had a dog, and some are rakers where they take their paw up and they scratch on you like, what are you doing stopping? They scratch on you. And my wife and I have been married next year 45 years, and I love to have my feet tickled. She loves to have her feet massaged. And both of us do it for a little while and we're thinking, oh God, I hope that's enough. I want to quit. At the same time, we're binge watching different shows on TV, and we just can't quit doing it. The poor little pets, oh, they've only slept 18 of the last 24 hours, So anyway, you get this biochemical spot treatment. But listen to this about the emotional contagion. I'm going to read this. Emotional contagion is the emotional response triggered by perceiving the emotional state of another individual. With people and interspecies, especially members of the social group with whom they have a strong social relationship or bond. So in people, it's you with your friends, it's you with your family, it's you with your neighbors, it's you with your coworkers, you with your church families, but also pet parents and their family dogs. We have an emotional contagion with our dogs. So that means they read our emotions, we read their emotions. They respond, dogs and humans respond almost the same to a baby crying. So, and even to a lesser extent, this emotional contagion may also apply if the dogs are responding to the emotional state of less familiar people or animals, i.e. sense and vocalizations and body language in a shelter thing. They can read, see, hear, smell human and dog emotions. It's called emotional matching. Feel the emotional experience or have empathy for others. Fear, anxiety, and stress result in negative emotional state or mood compared to neutral or innocuous responses, while positive may enhance the emotional state, mood, or response. So basically what this means is this: only humans and dogs and a few of the primates have emotional contagions, in that they can look at the mood not on their own species but also in other species. And so there's going to be some really valuable to see about how reducing fear, anxiety, and stress in people that work at shelters and rescue actually affects the emotional well-being of animals. So a lot more to learn there. So anyway, think about if your dog, try it, see if it has a right paw preference or which way its tail goes, and also know about this emotional contagion, that truly how we feel affects the pets that we take care of. Yeah, it's funny. Our cats now, it's funny the things that we've done because of Fear Free. It's so much about emotional well-being. We play with the Get Dabird, D-A-B-I-R-D is our cat's favorite toy. All these different scratching services. We put the food for Tally. We have a large home. We hide her food all over the house so she goes for food. We use a product. Can't remember the name of it. It looks like a giant tongue, and she lays on a heated, a heat pad like my mom used to use with a pink fleece baby blanket on it. And we use this tongue with these little rubber fingers. And there's one called Kong. Kong has Zoom Groom for dogs and cats, but prolonged massage. My wife is an animal massage therapist. There's actually books on therapeutic pet massage now. So we're learning lots of stuff about not just physically healthy, but emotionally healthy animals. The course is free. So I'll stop here, right?
This is where we are rejoining you. So Mal is just going to be popping on here in a second. I'm just waiting for him to turn on his camera and mic, but here we go. It has been a lively chat. It's been great to see.
Absolutely.
Mal, how are we going to match up with Laura's enthusiasm? She makes a Walmart greeter seem depressed.
We just have to do our best, Marty. Marty,
okay.
I have a question about, I know that Fear Free is really taken on like wildfire across the country. And I know that veterinarians pay for it, and groomers and trainers pay to be trained with Fear Free. And this course is actually free for animal welfare organizations. And I wonder why you do that, and what we might expect next from Fear Free for animal welfare.
We wanted it was our way of giving back. Mal, you happen to know that for me, this is Fear Free is going to charity anyway. It's going to help. If I could share my big dream with it, my wife and I are, Sunday when Fear Free sells, we're going to fund 12 to 15 endowed chairs in behavior at Washington State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. Right now, there's not an endowed chair in behavior in any veterinary school globally, and there'll be 12 to 15 in one location, and each chair will look at one species. So one for dogs, cats, horses, goats, sheep, thinking of a global community. But the things I had my eyes open. I didn't even know what a shelter was until I got to college. I'd never been in a shelter. We didn't have shelters growing up in rural southern Idaho, but then got involved with the People Pet Partnership at Washington State that very first day, and then started working with shelters. And I so applaud these people, that they give so much of themselves in these rescues, their time, their money, their energy, their homes. The people that my wife and I were like you guys. Twice I can think of in the last few years, we went to some shelter event and we promised each other we wouldn't adopt anything. We shook hands. We will not adopt anything today. And then one time she failed and one time I failed. So what I think will happen next for shelters, there's some other we keep adding different modules to the Fear Free Shelter course. So it's constantly evolving, but we're going to rethink animal handling. So right now we're going to become the best part on the globe to actually look at animal handling of dogs and cats. So that's a little bit, it's allied to Fear Free, but a little bit different. So you can expect that probably in the next 18 months. Literally take all the stars from everywhere on the globe and put them together in one spot.
Awesome.
And on that topic, actually, this is a good time to address one of the questions that came up in the chat, where we had Jim ask us if Fear Free collaborates with organizations who are building new shelters.
Yes, yeah, we absolutely do. And one of the things we're going to do, we certify veterinary hospitals to be a Fear Free certified veterinary hospital. So you can't have a Fear Free certified veterinary hospital without Fear Free certified people. So, the people part comes first, and you can certify the practice, kind of like AHA. We are in the process of developing a certification course, a certification for shelter facilities. And I will tell you, you do not listen, do not have to remodel your shelter. Like in practice, you don't have to have separate dog and cat waiting rooms. You don't have to, do this massive construction. What you do is a lot of it is remodeling your animal handling and doing just certain things. So I'm on the board of 5 local shelters. All 5 of the local shelters we have could be a Fair-Free certified facility. So that is coming. And then I got to put a plug in for Animal Arts. Animal Arts in Boulder, Colorado is the best place I've ever seen for fear-free design. And they're just new veterinary hospitals that are fear-free have no reception area at all. There's none. There's a little desk there where you can come in and pick up prescription or food, but instead there's more exam rooms, so the pets aren't in that collective spot. There's when you go into ER, if you're going to ER on the human side, they draw curtains around you. There's those things in there, so you can isolate a pet and isolate those banquet cages so they don't see other pets in distress. So Animal Arts has a free white paper on fear-free design. If you just Google them and say, hey, I was listening to Dr. Marty Becker talked and send me the white paper on fear-free design, they'll send it to you. But there's nothing we wouldn't do to help a shelter or rescue with any questions you have without cost.
Of course. And, Mal, it's a good thing you joined us because we did have quite a few questions about Shelters United as well. I'll just turn over to a little more info about them.
Well, super. Thank you. So exciting to be here with you, Marty and Lara. So appreciate the opportunity. Shelters United is actually a free group purchasing organization that helps all animal welfare organizations, whether they be rescues or shelters or spay-neuter clinics or TNR groups, save money on all the purchases that they need. And it's kind of the biggest question we typically get from people who are considering Shelters United are, what's the catch? Because it's free to join, there's no minimum purchase, and there's no purchase requirements at all. And the answer is always, there is no catch. They say it's too good to be true, but it actually is true. It's a free program, and all we're about is trying to help animal welfare groups save money on everything that they need. So Shelters United is worth checking out.
Yes, I believe you were saying Shelters United members saved over $2 million last year.
That's correct. We had over $2 million among our 1,200 members. We have almost 1,200, or just a few short of 1,200, which should happen any day now. And those groups saved over $2 million overall. So it's great. And actually, we have a great opportunity today for Shelters United members with our special promotion and bundle for Virox's rescue disinfectants. And it's really a great opportunity to get one of these bundles, where the whole goal of this is to be able to provide a mixing station that allows the organizations to get the right amount of concentrated product, mixing it with the right dilution for the specific task at hand, whether it's cleaning the floor or cleaning the countertop. And so this is an opportunity to get one of these mixing stations essentially for free if you buy a full 55-gallon drum of rescue now, and at almost half price if you purchase that other bundle with the 2 5-gallon pails of rescue. And I just want to let everybody know that this offer is so new that it's not actually available in our MWI store. So if you contact if you're a Shelters United member, contact one of your member consultants, Mary Beth or Danielle, and place an order for one of these equipment bundles, and they'll help you walk through that. And if you're not a member yet, one of our shelter specialists can get you set up so you can order one of these bundles and get this amazing opportunity for your organization.
Amazing. Oh, I think we may have just lost your audio there.
Can you hear me?
There, you're back.
Yeah, I want to put a plug in, of the 5 local shelters. We participate in what you do, Mal, and there's group buying groups for veterinary medicine. Almost all practices involved, but there's never been anything involved with shelters. And I know a lot of the shelters out there. Some of the 5 I'm on, one's awash in money, happens to live in an area with a lot of money and a lot of people that live in Seattle and are in Sandpoint for vacation homes. And I won't name any, but there's certain ones in the Seattle area and stuff that have a lot of money, and most of them are coin operated, and they, uh, and so it really helps if you can save money on the stuff that you have to buy anyway, and there is no catch. I just
Yeah,
really.
well, yeah. I've been in animal welfare for 42 years. I was here back in the day, Marty, when they used those decompression chambers to euthanize,
Oh
pets that
gosh.
weren't available. And I know people who carry that around as a huge burden on their shoulders. 40 years later, they're still carrying that burden around. So, this idea of using empathy and really tuning into the pet, I think, is such a fascinating thing. It amazes me that you created this concept that is so simple in its conceptual nature, but to actually implement it is actually far more complex than anybody could think of. And you figured out a way to turn this really powerful idea into something that's really revolutionizing the care of animals throughout the entire ecosystem of, veterinarian, trainer, groomer, shelter. It's really, really awesome.
We've been blessed. It's a team effort. It's we, not me. I mean, I have passion, I have determination, I have a network, and I think I'm pretty good at popularizing something, a communication skill. But it's built on the bedrock of boarded veterinary behaviors. I would have no idea though I only did this because I had my life changed with one lecture, and that can happen. I think one message sometimes, whether it's in your church or at a lecture in college or something, and when I realized I've loved animals my whole life, I felt like I was compassionate. I had no idea that we were causing this kind of damage to pets. I thought that was all collateral damage, that
Yeah.
there's nothing you could do about it. And then when you realize, I mean, I knew pets had emotions and I knew they were stressed. I just didn't know there's something we could do about it. So we spent 5 years figuring out proof of concept. We worked with PhD behaviorists and board of veterinary behaviorists and animal handling experts and actually figured out how to do it. And then it was just to match up with the oath. And then we found out better medicine, fewer injuries, easier to attract and retain people. And it makes practice fun. And
Yeah.
I think this thing with shelters, anything that we can do there. And I did notice some of the comments there, by the way. You can take fear-free, fearfreeshelters.com as many times as you want. If you go to WAGs, like wag your tail, wags at fearfreepets.com. If anybody says, I'm having trouble, I took it before, can I take it again? Wags at fearfreepets.com, and they'll get you set up. This is available to shelters and rescues around the world. Doesn't matter where you're at. And it's also free to all veterinary students, faculty, and staff, all veterinary nursing students, faculty, and staff. And right now, Mal, about 2/3 of the 33 veterinary schools in the United States require fear-free certification of all students before graduation.
It's an
So,
amazing evolution, just amazing.
yeah.
And you mentioned the chat. A bunch of folks are asking whether through Shelters United that you can purchase, prescription medications. And yes, that's actually one of the greatest benefits, helping animal welfare groups, rescues, and shelters save money on the prescription products and the over-the-counter products that they need. And it's funny that you mentioned that it's free, and you sort of stress that Shelters United is free. I see a lot of parallels between what Fear Free is doing and what Shelters United is doing, and it sort of tickles me to see those.
Well, Mal, you and I've known each other on different boards because we've served on all these national boards, and I tease because Mal's a great board member and I'm pretty lousy. But
Not at all.
we're in this for the right reasons. Even you just think of the way the world is, and those of us that get to work with animals, with people, it's it's sometimes it's hidden agendas and posturing for personal gain and performances. With animals, unconditional love, limitless affection, to die for loyalty. We laugh every day with them. Man, it's a great bargain that we did. And those people, those of you that are on here that work at shelters and rescues, I bow to you. I find other ways to support it, but I can't do the day-to-day things anymore, just from having euthanized so many dogs. But bless you, bless you, bless you.
I look forward to seeing you at the Western Veterinary Conference in a week or so. You and Lara both. Looking really forward to meeting Temple Grandin too. That should be such an awesome opportunity. I've never met her in person, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
she is just what a gift. That's all I can just say. What a gift. And she helped us, she went into shelters too. And so there's other things coming out based on what she saw in shelters, what she saw in veterinary practices. So more to come.
Great, great.
Now, we are, not to interrupt, but we are just hitting up on that hour and we got a lot of questions. So I'd love
Okay.
to just jump into them.
You
But
bet.
before we get started, I know we said Fear Free is available internationally. However, Shelters United, there are some international people on this call. So a lot of people are asking, is it available outside of the US now?
It is not at this point in time, but boy, that's one of my dreams is actually to expand it beyond the country. And for those of you who are in the U.S. and you have an interest, you can visit sheltersunited.com or call our 800-864-1133 to learn more about how you can join or how you can benefit.
Well, great. So let's just dive right into some of those questions really quick while we have some time. And first question comes from Rose, who asks if there's any way to list their shelter or rescue facility as fear-free licensed, or is that just for veterinarians? Dr. Becker.
Oh, say it again. Sorry. Say it again. Sorry.
Rose is asking if you can only list, if it's only veterinarians that can list that they're fear-free licensed, or if shelters can also list that.
Okay, so what they do is it's different. So if you're a veterinarian, a trainer, or a groomer, or a pet sitter, and soon to be boarding, you're actually completing a certification course. So at the end of it, you get a certificate that you are certified. The ones with the shelters, you show a certificate of completion of the course. It's a little bit of a nuance, but I hope that answers it.
Well, you are thinking of expanding that and creating a shelter certification.
Yeah, so there's no reason if you had there's nothing to stop somebody from going to fearfreepets.com, because there's people, we have well over 125,000 people that are certified, and they're veterinarians, they're veterinary nurses, they're receptionists, they're kennel attendants. And so they receive a certificate of completion. But if you wanted to do that, you would pay for that part. It's not very expensive. You'd be shocked how low it is. It's a great value. But then they could be fear-free certified as somebody to say that was in charge of animal handling, or the cat person, or the veterinarian and stuff like that. But we are doing something to where a facility can actually be, you could have Panhandle Animal Shelter could become a fear-free certified shelter, and inside you could have people that got had the completion, and others that were actually certified.
Awesome.
And we had a lot of discussion in the chat about pheromones. So a lot of people are wondering, what pheromones do you recommend? I know your typical protocol of using the rescue wipes, spray the pheromones. So what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, I will tell you, of 100 board of veterinary behaviorists, 70 love them and 30 don't like them. So I do want to tell you that it's not without controversy. I've looked exhaustively at the research, and I'm a big fan of pheromones, and I've seen it just with my own eyes and ears and everything with these pets. But the ones that I like the best are adaptable for dogs, ADAPTIL, and Feliway, FELIWAY. And so adaptable, if you can, see my men's shirt here, where these buttons are, if you think of the bitch, or with nipples going down either side, where the buttons are, there's these sebaceous glands that secrete a pheromone to calm these puppies. And that's what adaptable is. It's a synthetic version of that. The Feliway is a synthetic version of the feline cheek pheromone. So when they rub against you or rub against furniture, that's that cheek pheromone. There is a product called Feliway Multicat that is different. It is the appeasing pheromone. So if you think of the queen, the same thing with the nipples right down here, that is a different pheromone. But what we do is everything we do, like I think I have my stethoscope down here. Every time I get done using my stethoscope after each office visit, we wipe it down with rescue, and then we wipe back across it with the species that I'm going to see next. So if it's a dog, it's adoptable. If it's cat, it's feel away.
And I just saw a question actually come in from Maria. Will pheromones make dogs urinate?
No. It's really funny because you can't. They have an alcohol carrier to the pheromone, so I don't particularly like the smell of that spray aerosol. So I usually put it on my smock without it wearing it, or I put it on where a little bit where I got good airflow. But the cat can't smell the dog one. The dog can't smell the cat one. The humans can't smell either of them. And if you put it in your rooms, if you have it in the reception area, put in more than one. And if you have a room, like if you have a cat room, make sure the doors are closed so that it builds up in there. Shelters and hospitals tend to have pretty good airflow. But we have it on our clothes. It's on our instruments. It's on the pets. If you think of something that no pet has a positive association with a syringe, I can almost say none of them. So if you're going to give them an injection or vaccination, it's under a little towel, a little light blue towel, pastel colored, and it's hidden. That towel is sprayed with pheromones as well.
And an interesting question came in from Amber asking if dogs can have GI upset from stress pheromones, and is there any information on pheromones decreasing the efficacy of probiotics?
No, nothing on probiotics. And I'll tell you one thing. People often ask, okay, this is going to freak some people out here. Ready? Our protocol, we follow the Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine's treat protocol that they've used for over a decade. You ready for this one? We try to give 60 treats in a 15-minute exam. So I know people are going, wow, 60 treats, whoa, in a 15-minute exam? What did he just say? Okay, here's the thing. I can take a bacon strip and I can break that into 60 pieces, one bacon strip. And if I'm using squeezed peanut butter, I can make 60 little dollops that one lick goes. So collectively, you're not giving much. And you think, yeah, but they're getting Vienna sausages and Spam and turkey and salmon and hot dogs and all this stuff. Well, hey, they don't live here, right? And just like when I was in Hawaii for a month, I overate a few times, but you don't gain 3 pounds from a huge meal, right? Ohio State University used to track these animals going home. Did they have digestive upset, vomiting or diarrhea? And it was less than the ones that didn't have it because you're reducing fear, anxiety, and stress. So counterintuitive. So they even quit tracking it. And so you always say, well, what about the pets that have allergies? You have them bring the hypoallergenic treats they give at home, or you give marshmallows, or you give a hypoallergenic diet that we have, or you use frozen beef bouillon, just a little Dixie cup with frozen beef bouillon or chicken broth, and just let them lick that. So there's nothing you could think of, a question that's probably not been answered. If you go on, there's some really good Facebook group posts, and you could post almost anything and get an answer from people that know. Or wags at fearfreepets.com.
We are getting a lot of follow-up questions about the pheromones in the chat, and in the interest of time, I don't know if we have time for all of them, but that's a great suggestion. So wags at fearfree.com.
Wags at fearfreepets.com, or just if you go through the Fear Free Shelters course. But I'm telling you, these pheromones are they're safe, they're powerful, they're easy to use, and so you want it. It's just that environment, it's outside on that vertical surface. It's on those bandanas you put on them. It's on those cotton balls you toss in the carrier. It's on those blankets. It's on instruments. It's in the kennels. It's just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So you use the Virox to get rid of the stuff you don't want. You use the pheromones to add the stuff you do want.
Great suggestion. Now I'm going to move on to another topic that we had quite a few questions about, where people were asking, how do you tell the difference between feigned sleep and true sleep?
I love how you say a boot. So that
It's my
gives
Canadian
you,
coming out.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, so feigned sleep is when one of the things is their tail is usually tucked, and it's almost, just think of you sleeping on an airplane. That's feigned sleep, where you're aware of everything that's going on, but you're kind of, your eyes are closed. So I can tell you, so I've been doing now Fear Free for 12 years. You don't see a pet with true sleep inside of a veterinary exam room. What you will see, though, now this is crazy. First time a pet goes into the exam room or goes into a shelter in a certain spot and has that exam, they're vaccinated, everything. They know which door they leave from. And from that point on, they will always be looking at, surging towards, laying by, leaning towards that door that they escaped from. What happens in Fear Free, and in those situations, you never come in your door, like in the veterinary exam room where there's two doors. You never come in your door and have to scoot the dog out of the way because it's waiting to see you come in. Fear Free changes that. Those dogs will actually wait for you to come into that door. And so chances are, if that dog is laying down with its head down between its legs, with its tail up tucked, and they'll typically have a furrowed brow, that is collapsing immobility. And any cat that's frozen, those cats that just don't move, which I used to love before Fear Free, that's collapsing immobility.
And another interesting topic that that people were looking for a little more information on was, you brought up nose blindness earlier. So are you able to share a little bit more information about that, and any information around how long that typically lasts?
So it lasts about a week. So according to the studies that I've seen, it only takes about 60 seconds to happen. So they're sniffing. And even just think of, you can go into, my wife happens to love the smell of Clorox. She always thinks that smells like it's really clean, So if you're ever in a hotel and she smells that, she's like, oh man, I love that stuff. But they can detect such low levels of that. But if they come in, it destroys the olfactory neurons up in there inside their nose within about 60 seconds, and it lasts about a week.
Wow.
So they sniff, but they can't smell anything.
Okay, that is not what we like to hear, liking the smell of Clorox.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's Tracy. I've talked to her. Actually, I have to tell you, though, she is the rescue queen. Like when we travel, she's wipes the plane down with it. She wipes. What all do you wipe down with it, Tracy? Oh, all the handles, the phones in the room and everything. So I know it's not made for, well, it is in humans because it's in human hospitals and stuff, but it's safe to use. But she's a big fan. It's in the cars.
I do the same thing. We actually just had a question from Elise over here who's saying, does Excel/rescue have the same effect on the olfactory nerves? So the question is no.
No, it doesn't. That's a good thing about, and I was a big fan. The people at Virox never even knew who I was, but I was such a fan talking about it because it breaks down into water and oxygen. It's hydrogen peroxide. I mean, I'll bet a different hydrogen peroxide than what you have in your house, but it was the only disinfectant used on the International Space Station. It's quite a space nut, and you think, how the heck can you have something that does that breaks down into water and oxygen? And the one thing I have noticed, Laura, and I'm sure it's been the experience of some shelters, sometimes when you first use it, there's a little bit of a malodor because it really cleans, but then it's gone. And It's really funny. I go to the dentist, they're using your product. I go to the hospital, they're using your product. And I don't know what kind of penetration you have in human healthcare, but it must be dramatic. But it's like taking over. Is that where you started?
That is where we started. Yeah. I do the same thing. Every time I go into somewhere, I look for it.
Yeah.
Well, we are coming up on, we've gone a little bit over time, actually. So unfortunately, I know I still see questions coming in. We just don't have the time for it today. But feel free to visit rescuedisinfectants.com or Fear Free Shelters, or of course, reach out to the Shelters United team, who I've seen in the chat here today. And so first of all, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Laura, I was just going to say, fearfreehappyhomes.com is complimentary to all pet parents. So if you're a shelter or rescue, that's really, you want them to have a forever home, have that pet be happy and healthy. There's, that's the place to send them, because it's not like you're sending them, so we're going to sign them up for something. It's all complimentary. So remember that. And those questions, I keep seeing questions come in about, diabetic dogs, can you do treats? There's certain exceptions. So we have them bring the pets in hungry unless it's contraindicated. And sometimes that's for a diabetic dog, but really not really. There's anything that you think of has probably been answered if you go into there. And if you have a question like that and you don't find it, go to wags@fearfreepets.com and one of those 256 experts will answer it for you.
Amazing. Well, I would just want to say thank you, of course, to you, Dr. Becker, and to you, Mal, for today's presentation. And thank you for everybody for tuning in and staying with us. I know we went a little bit over time. If you have any additional questions, of course, as I mentioned, you can visit rescuedisinfectants.com. We will also be sending out a follow-up email to everybody who registered for this webinar with a link to watch the recording and additional resources as well. So on behalf of our team here at Virox and our presenters today and Shelters United, of course, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lara.
Thanks, Lara.
Marty.
Thanks, everybody.
And thanks to Virox and Rescue for sponsoring this. It's really been so fascinating. I learned so much that I didn't know, and I'm very surprised about that.
This has been awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed.
Take care.